In this lesson, we'll create a 3+2 pocketing toolpath. After completing this lesson, you'll be able to create a multi-axis position contour toolpath, simulate toolpaths to validate motion, and create a duplicate toolpath and modify its parameters. In Fusion 360, we'll carry on with our multi-axis positioning design. If you had any difficulty, you can also upload the supplied dataset, Multi-Axis Positioning V9. At this point, let's take a look at what's been done so we understand what has to happen next. We've done a roughing operation as well as outside profile, taking care of the top pocket, then drilling and tapping the top 4 holes. We then moved on to some multi-axis positioning operations to spot and drill the 4 large holes on each arm. At this point, we want to take care of the counterboards on each of those positions. And in order to do this, we will need to do another 3+2, but in this case, instead of drilling, we're going to be using a 2D contour. The reason that a 2D contour works in this case is because we've already pre-drilled these holes. So that way we have an entry position in the center, and it'll be much easier for us to come in with a 2D contour or another circular operation such as a bore. But in this case, we'll select 2D contour, and we want to use tool number 6, which is a 3/8 flat. We've already used this tool before, so it should already be in our documents. Once we select the tool, we'll go to our geometry, and we need to select our tool orientation. Once again, we need to select the Z-axis, and this can be done by selecting either a face we want Z to be normal to, or by selecting a cylindrical face, and it'll align its axis. After we make that selection, we can see that Z is in the correct orientation. At this point, we now need to select our contour. We're going to be creating a 2D contour at the bottom, and you can see that we have the arrow on the appropriate side already. In the height section, it's automatically going to go based off that selected contour. So in the passes section, we simply want to make sure that we're not doing any roughing or multiple depths. We're going to move on to our linking parameters, and we'll leave everything as default for now and simply say OK. Once the operation is created, we can see a preview on the screen. But before we go ahead and create duplicates, let's take a look at what is actually being machined with that operation. So the tool comes in, you can see that it plunges, and then it creates that pattern. We're going to go back to the previous operation and play through again, but this time I want to slow it down a little bit. I want to see how it engages the stock to see if we need to add a roughing pass. As it goes in, it's actually machining, which tells me that it's removing too much material in this single pass. There are a couple different ways that we can handle this. We can add a secondary pass or a roughing pass, or inside of our linking parameters, we can either have it ramp down or give it a pre-drill entry position. In this case, I'm going to select the pre-drill position being the center and say OK, allow it to regenerate, and then simulate it one more time. What we should see now when we simulate is that the tool is going to be entering at the center of the hole and then moving its way around and making the cut. However, with that pre-drill position, we now have a warning with our toolpath. It says it cannot use drill positions because keep tool down is not activated. So we need to check that setting inside of our linking parameters for keeping the tool down. If we use keep tool down and we say OK, we should allow it to regenerate and no longer have that warning. We'll simulate one last time before we create any duplications just to make sure that everything is working properly. Everything looks good, and now that we have a handle on the operation, we can duplicate it and take care of some of the other geometry. I'm going to rotate the body around, and then I'll duplicate my 2D contour. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to select Duplicate, and then the new duplicate will right-click and edit. Remember, we first need to change the tool orientation, so I'm going to reselect the Z face. Then I need to reselect the chain I want to machine. Because we've also gone in and given it a pre-drill position, we'll have to come back and make sure we select that as well. Once we have all these settings, we can say OK and allow it to create this new operation. So you can see we've taken care of the 2 counterbores, but we're not ready to quite pattern these yet because we have to machine a little bit more geometry. Before we do that, let's go back to a home view and save the design before moving on to the next step.